Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen who have joined us on this Dr. Fundi channel via Facebook, via YouTube, Twitter, or the Dr. Fundi website. Welcome. My name is Fundi Lenyati, and I'm the host of this channel. Now, during the month of August, we were showcasing phenomenal women who had done great things or who are doing great things, and it was a very successful, series. From the beginning of this month, we decided that we need to continue, to showcase or profile people who are doing things. It doesn't have to be during August only. And so we decided as the channel that on Sundays, we will have what we call Salute Sundays, where we give salute, we give props to somebody that we believe has inspired us. So today, my guest is Miss Selina Velaphi. Miss Selina Velaphi is a book writer, or is an author. Let me use the right word. She's an author. She, when everyone else was complaining about lockdown, but actually lockdown worked for her because she actually released her book during lockdown. And her book, she will tell us more about that. But her book is beautifully broken. So she's a mosaic that was beautifully broken. She'll tell us why she decided to come up with a title like that. But otherwise, she is an HR specialist, somebody who's been doing great things, doing emceeing, doing program directing, doing many things. But at some point, she had to stop doing all of those things because her ancestry decided otherwise. Her ancestry decided that she needs to respond to what they wanted so that she can then be able to go back and thrive whilst making a difference to other people. So I'm not going to say much. This is not my time, it's Selina's time. But, we can't be talking ancestry or ancestors without talking about the clan name. So Gumamtane, so before we have this conversation, it's important that we welcome Umamtane Takuhle. She needs to be able to relax. Her entourage needs to be able to be there with her as she shares her story with us. And so I'm going to ask her to just introduce herself by just taking us through her clan names, the kind of clan names that she normally calls when she's about to do her work. Selina, over to you.
Tamaku Pele, Tamaku Token. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. As you said, it's important for Mna Indoba. When I introduce myself, I say Indoba, I'm not a child that walks alone. I walk with Amantlane, I walk with Amazangwe, which is the clan Gamama Wam, Ozongo Zotayon Janana, Omsenga no Nyilata. I walk with Amachawe, which is my paternal grandmother, Okautom Tangikacho Palongo Siamdu. I walk with Amatwasho, which is my maternal grandmother. I walk with Amanyele, which is Ukokogazi, and I walk with Ostatu Ondebe, Oase Okopoyo Trisana, which is Omnyu Kokogas Wam. Nabanye Gengababizaga Makama Siesicho, as we are including everyone else that you might not know. So I'm mentioning them and I'm honoring them at this time. Tamaku. Exactly.
All right, welcome, Selina. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Today it's just about celebrating you. All right. I'm celebrating you because, yes, you are still a young person. But once you are with the entourage or Ambanayo, you're not young anymore because your connection goes back generations and generations and generations. And
That is
so
true.
we honor you, we're honoring you, but we're also honoring the hundreds of years of the other people that I normally just call them the invincibles. So the invisibles, I call them the invisibles or the underground. The underground crew, you know. So just to kickstart our conversation, like I said, we're just here to profile you.
Thank you.
Who is Selina?
Okay,
Selina. Where was she born? What kind of family did she grow up in? What kind of influences that shaped her early life? What are the kind of things in the communities where you grew up that you still remember that are part of your campus today?
Okay, I grew up in Tanzania, which is the second largest township in South Africa, in the boxing.
Yes.
I grew up as a first child of umama wami had 3 children, but I grew up in a family where you have cousins and some other people you're not really sure how you related to, but they there. So I didn't grow up in those families where, because we're only 3, umama wam, I grew up with a lot of cousins and aunts.
Yes.
I grew up in a family that had a very strong a presence of matriarchy or mama.
Yes.
So even though there would be, I knew my father, but they divorced while I was still young. So I grew up in the side like lo mama.
Yes.
So I grew up with a lot of omakazi and not much of the uncles and the malumes,
Yes.
even though they were there. So yeah, and then I grew up in an environment where, when I was growing up, we didn't really have a lot of role models in terms of seeing Indoba. You have your doctors, you have your teachers. Yes, they were, but they were very far, a few in between. So you grew up not really having a lot of role models. But also because Umama Wam was a domestic worker, I grew up with what I normally say that I had the best of both worlds. So I had this world where we are in the suburbs when we're visiting Umama.
Yes.
And there's Umama and the dad, which is my granny and my papa. May their souls rest in peace because they passed. They sort of adopted us. So I had that world where there's a swimming pool, there's tennis courts, there's all this other fancy lifestyle. And then there's the lifestyle as in Tanzania, which is a totally different one. And I grew up. Yes, yes. So yes, and then I grew up I went to Iskolo, Zepantu education. I grew up in the. You mentioned me being young. Thank you for that, but I'm actually 45, so I'm not sure how young that is.
Relative to me.
Okay. I hear you. So I grew up in the era where into the strikes, you were stopped from going to school because you have people saying to you, Indoba, you need to go and fight for freedom. You can't be going to school. So I grew up in that era, and like I say, Indoba, there were those few OCC who were teachers and nurses, and you're like, you know what? Actually, this is the life that I wanted. So I went to varsity in Cape Town, which is something that
you're moving too fast for me.
Oh, sorry.
You're moving too fast.
Okay.
We're still growing up in Tanzania.
Okay.
As the firstborn child, that's normally referred to as the deputy parent.
Yes.
Did you grow up being deputy parents to your younger siblings?
Mm-hmm. Actually, the interesting thing, remember I mentioned, Doc, that As much as I was the eldest and there was 3 of us mama, but they were cousins.
Okay.
So now with the cousins, they were older ones.
Yes.
So with the cousins, I was actually the middle child.
Okay.
Now it's interesting that you're asking me that, because I just remembered something. So you know, when your parents would bring something nice, at the time it would be a pie, for example,
Yes. Yes.
or a juice, kapana, you
Yes.
know. So because there's many of you, so when whoever brought this would be sharing, and then maybe as quite enough as corner, then they would say, you know, no, we'll only give to the little ones. But I would not be part of the little ones. And then when there's certain privileges that the older ones would get, for example, we had to be inside the house at 6 o'clock. But for the older ones, maybe, you know, we'll try maybe 7 o'clock. Then at 6 o'clock because I'm one of the little ones.
Yes.
So it was actually a joke in the family, because there was a day when I said, Indoba, okay, I need to sit you down and you guys must decide, Indoba, am I the little one, or do I belong this side?
Yes, yes, yeah.
So yeah, so as much as I was supposed to be a deputy parent, I wasn't exactly that. I grew up like a middle child, basically.
Yes. So
yeah.
So by default, you were a middle child, you know,
Yes,
because
I was a middle child.
Now, would you say when you look at yourself, characteristics zakho, there's a middle child, because now I'm a middle child, and there's different ways that we approach the world. We want to fight for our position, you know, and make things happen, because you are not the firstborn, you are not the lastborn. You tend to be much more independent, you know, than the other one. So how would you characterize Jake Osjongile?
I can relate to what you just said, because that's exactly what happened to me. So you were kind of the child who's not exactly head or sin, because we take care of the little ones, ne? And then we know, okay, they've got this. So when you kind of, you're not sure where you're supposed to fit, and then you must find your way. But firstly, what I did now was, I was the child who ended up sitting in a corner alone. So I would be that child who's like, okay, let me read a book. Because you're not head, you are just in the middle. You don't get a lot of attention because of, but you don't get the privileges because so I started reading a lot. And yes, I can relate to what you're saying, because when I look back at how I made things happen, and I think that's why in the end, when you were asking me about my background, and I went to varsity, because I'm actually the first person in the history of family, both the mother and the father side, to go to university. And they didn't want me. It's not like they didn't want me to get the education, but it was this thing, you're going to Cape Town. I mean, it's far and all of that. But I had this thing, no, I need to make things happen. I need to push. So yes, I can relate exactly to what you're saying, because I always had this independent mind.
Yes. So growing up, what did you want to be? I know you said there were no role models, or there were not enough of role models. You know, beside Abo Welcome Nita, you know, and you know, and all of that. But what did you wish to be growing up?
I wanted to be a teacher. And I'm not sure if that came from, those were things that I would see, and it seems like it was the easier route.
Yes.
But I also wanted to, I knew that I wanted to write.
Yes.
But I could not articulate and say that I wanted to be a writer, because at the time, the only people who were writers or authors were white people that I can't even say, I know this person. Like how Daniel Steele. for example. You understand? So it's not something that I articulated. I knew that, but I love doing this thing. So I wanted to be a teacher, but I also wanted to be Brenda Fassie, and I can't sing to save my life.
Aibo. So what was the inspiration?
I think you'd hear about Brenda is a girl from Kwalanga, Cape Town. You understand? And kuselokishini apho, and this person black, and they singing baku stage. So maybe there's something there.
Yes.
So I think that was coming from that.
Yes. And so high school, any highlights from your high school years before we get to the varsity part?
I actually grew up the tomboy. So I grew up in the tomboy who climbs trees and plays with the boys. Nikhweleza bicycle isn't brakes.
Yeah.
And then but you can't cry and go home because abazukhwelisa the next day if you cry. And then when I went to high school, I think that's where I kind of blossomed into, maybe I'm somehow pretty. I'm a girl, because now boys are noticing you, and now you're noticing boys, and then Miss Nyameko. I went to Nyameko High School.
Yes.
And then Miss Nyameko. And shame, they were catering for us shorties.
Yeah.
So there was Miss Nyameko senior and then Miss Nyameko junior. So junior, it was us, the shorties.
Yeah.
So I entered this Miss Nyameko and I won, and I'm like, yes, this is it. So that was one of the highlights. But also, one of the things I can think of, which and I'm mentioning it because it makes me realize some of the things. It's part of the reflections that I have when I think about how my life turned out up in Udaleni. Is that, remember I mentioned in Doba there was this other life, Kakreni, which is my white grandmother. Yeah. And so I was that child who ended up playing tennis. Obviously, I wouldn't play it with Golo Zetu because they didn't have such things. So I was that child who was acting white.
Yeah.
So sorry?
You were a coconut of some kind.
Yes, and that thing would then make abanye abantu say things about how senza umlungu lo mntana, so I was othered. So my first experience of being othered, because u-actor ngathi ungumlungu mani izinto zayo, so you can't be one of us, and then you go to the white side but then you're black. So where do I belong? So I think those two things come to mind.
Yes. So you said you loved reading, and you also thinking about being a writer. Are you the kind of child who would write poems and stuff? And if you are, which poem do you still remember from those days? That stuck to your head or that you wrote yourself?
Yes, I was always that child who liked to write. I found that if there's something that was bothering me, remember I was mentioning how I would always feel that I wasn't heard.
Yes.
And so I would write down, and I would feel, after writing something down, it makes me feel better, whether it's my feelings or whatever. I was never a poem person, but a poem that would come to mind, there was a poem, The Daffodils. I wonder, lonely as the cloud, that floats
high over hills and hills.
Yes.
Once I saw
a host of daffodils besides the lake, beneath the tree. Yes.
Yeah. That's William.
Yes, I remember that one.
Yes. Okay. All right. So as you were wrapping up your high school years, were you still wanting to be Brenda Fassie or a writer, or now you had crystallized your thoughts? Good, no, man. Actually, I think I want to be this. Was that's the time you had to apply now, to start thinking about tertiary?
I actually now moved to, okay, now obviously I was old enough to understand it, but I can't sing to save my life, so I cannot be Brenda Fassie. I still wanted to be a teacher, but also I wanted to be a journalist. But then I think my idea of a journalist was the journalist that I was reading about in the books. So the journalist who would be holding these cameras and running around and you know, that, because I'm an adrenaline junkie, so I think it was coming from that. But then I was like, I don't really see those kind of journalists in South Africa. I see them in my books, but they're not there. So I ended up with the route of teaching. So that one really stuck with me.
Yeah, lovely. And so now this was grade 12. I'm sure, were you in the group of the grades or the standards? Because
standards.
Whole group, yeah, standards.
I was a standard dog, and you know what they used to do, ne? About Dr. Fundi, you know, the science and maths,
yeah,
would be standard 12A, ne? So Nina, you'll be A. I was never in A. I was never in that class.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I was always in the B or the C, because that's where the history students went. Yes. You know, so we've always known those ones. Those are the clever ones, and then Tina, we are here. Yeah. You know, I remember one of my teachers. Actually, it wasn't even one in high school, who desperately wanted me to do maths and science, and you could tell that it was coming from Indoba. But we feel, Ndoba, you're a clever child, and that's where you belong. And I was terrible with the subjects. I was absolutely terrible. I loved history, because with history I could write essays. I could write a story and you know. So yeah.
Lovely. But ke ngoku apply ke ngoku ke which varsities did you apply for? Apply to, and for what?
I did a higher diploma in education. I went to the University of the Western Cape.
Yeah.
So I stuck with teaching.
Yeah.
And one of my very interesting experiences that I had when I got there was, obviously you would get the older guys who maybe doing their third years or whatever. And then they would ask you, okay, so what are you doing here? And you tell them, oh, okay, we'll fund up here. And then you tell them, and they're like, okay, what are the subjects? What are your majors? And when you say, oh, no, I'm majoring in English and history, they're like, huh, English from Bantu education? How's our failure? How's our failure? You don't go there. English 101, no, you don't go there. You must do the other one. I forgot what the other one was. So for me, it was like, oh, okay. So if I'm doing English 101, then I've moved from being good B or C to good A, you know, I'm clever, you know, because it's like you can't be doing English 101 if you are doing Ibantu education. But also one of my the memories that I have, which was a very interesting one, is that I remember one of the lecturers, they took a history lecture. He walks in, he writes on the board. I'm still in shock, get talk, ne? I'm having this cultural shock here, but you are in this big hall. You have people dressed, ngati, I don't know, ngati, they're still going to bed. And I'm from a structure, ne? And then others walk in late. I'm from Iskolo, if you come in late. So this is all new. So while I'm still having that cultural shock, the lecturer walks in and writes, Shaka, kasenza ngakhona Zulu. Villain, hero. And then he says, Indoba, so write an essay about Shaka Zulu, blah, blah, blah. Then he goes on about, you know, the whole thing, essay, Indoba, pages, and I'm like, but you're not telling me what I must write. You're not saying Indoba Ushaka is a villain or Ushaka is a hero. Why are you confusing me? Because I was coming from the kind of education where you get told, you know, you get told, but this is the history and this is what you must study. and then produce quick exams. Now all of a sudden this new thing hero, villain, and whether you must decide which one, as long as you are showing evidence of saying supporting whatever thing. It was just a new thing. So yeah, I ended up being a bush. We called it a bush.
Yes, a bush. Yes. And how was the time there? I mean, that was one university where people had fun, lots of fun. Most of the friends that I know, even some of my friends who went there in Ngomsebenzi, they would always talk about, if you really wanted to have fun, it's not, like weekends or whatever, the place to go to.
We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun.
UWC and Pentec.
Yes. We had a lot of fun. Obviously, we are fika, and then you like, oh, here's my friend is also here, and then I got to be part of the It Girls. Talk like I was part of the It Girls, and you know what happens with It Girls?
You were within. If we use the language today, you were within.
Doc, you think we are the most beautiful ones, Varsity yonke. We are the most wanted one by the boys. Every party, and now then there will be levels. Doc. So with the levels now, there were parties and the bashes as school.
Yeah.
But now the guys who had cars and who would come to a bush, would be the girls who would go to those parties.
Yeah.
That would be in Milnerton. And so you're like, it's irrelevant, Tina. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And especially because I was coming from a background, a strict, when you had to go to a birthday party, you have to say like 2 months before, or even line ibhaleza, cards.
Yes.
And saying, my friend invited me to this party, and chances are you might not even go. So it was this freedom, I can do whatever it is that I wanted to do. But then you get to a point where you're like, okay, you know what? I come from a family in Amali. I can go to all these parties, but I still need to be responsible and ensure, at the end of the day, pasa, and I get this thing up.
Yes.
So it was a lot of fun.
And so you cruised through, you got what you went there for?
I did.
And, yes, and now, what, did you do majors in certain things or what? I'm just trying to understand the course, Lubuyens.
Okay, I majored in English and English literature and history.
Yes.
I did a bit of psychology.
Yes.
I did linguistics and a lot of other ones that I can't really recall. But I'm mentioning these ones because specifically psychology and linguistics, because it's some of the things you mentioned when you get to a certain stage, there are things reflect back, and you're like, oh, okay, you know what? Actually, I was kind of, being led to a certain thing. So yeah, that's what I did.
And what did you take up, take out of psychology lessons? I'm asking you deliberately because of what we're going to be talking about later, around your calling and stuff.
What I took out was that people behave in certain ways, not just, there's always something, whether the way abakhule ngakhona or the way abaconditionwe ngakhona, it's either by life circumstances, or maybe the things that they associate themselves with, ebenza into behave in certain ways. So you don't just take things for granted, this person is behaving this way because they want to. There's always things that causes abantu to behave in certain ways. And I remember, as you mentioning that, one of the because I 1994 I was a push, so I'm one of the people who who ensured that I'm that important, doc, that that EANC was in power because I got to vote at that time. I was 18.
Yeah.
And I remember one of the assignments that we had was it's not an assignment. What is this word that they would call case study?
Yeah.
A case study asking Indoba, what would you think? What do you think that in abantu base Western Cape specifically would vote for other other political parties, when you know Indoba, even nabo, it's not like they were not, it's not like zange bacinezelwe. So those dynamics Indoba, how do people think, what make people think such things? So it was a very, in fact, it's one of the things in Phyllis Indoba, I should have done it maybe to, I don't know, but it was very interesting.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. So you finished your course, and then what? Did you continue and study further, or you decided, you know what, I'm going to look for a job?
I decided to look for, actually, I wanted to do e-honors, e-BEd. I wanted to do that, but obviously the family was like, I mean, I come from a family, Apple, they're expecting it, okay, well, you're done now, and you're gonna get a nice cushy job, and after the cushy job, you're gonna make things easy for us, ekaya, ne? And now there's, yes, yes, exactly. Even though we didn't have that name for it then.
Yeah.
So, and now you know, but that's what is expected from me, and it's something that you want to do. So I couldn't do that because the thing was, kukhona abanye abantwana abazemveni kwakho and nabo they need to study, so you can't be sitting and telling us about honors. You need to go find a job. And I think that's where part of the things is about the struggle started, because I couldn't find a job, and then I decided, okay, let me move back home and see what happens there. And yeah, so I didn't continue at the time with the studies.
Yes.
As studies in the Zenza, they were while already now when I was corporate.
Working. Yes. All right. But at some point you got a job, right?
At some point I got a job, yes.
Yes. Because I'm trying to get to a point of how did you land up in the HR space? I think that my questioning is actually going there.
Okay. So when I was back home in East London, I decided, hey, ingathi Joburg, that's where the gold is.
Yeah.
So let me go to Joburg. I went to Joburg. I had a friend there. I stayed with him, and I started looking for umsebenzi. But now there was a buzz about a call center at the time, because even though I was done with my teaching course, I knew that that's not what I wanted. Actually, I had just of teaching back in East London. And then, but I knew, no man, actually, I don't think this is the thing, yeah, that I want to do. So there was a buzz about call center. No, there's a thing called a call center. You can work in a call center. So I started applying for a call center, and I ended up in a call center. When I was there, then I was like, actually, I think I want to do PR. And you see, actually, I was a bit confused when I talk.
No.
So I was like, okay, I think I want to do PR. I registered for that, and Dianza through UNISA. Ne? So while I was in the process, of doing my PR, I ended up in this company where I was in a call center, my first permanent job, where I was in a call center while I'm studying PR. And someone came to me and said, Ndoba, did you see these positions as a HR? And I'm like, I'm not interested in HR, because for me, HR was recruitment.
Yeah.
So he says to me, no, but it's training and development. And I'm thinking, une qualification, you're teaching, so this thing would come in handy. So I was like, okay, let me try it, because I don't want to be in a call center for a long time. But the interest at the time was PR. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I ended up in HR by default, basically. But when I got there, that's when I realized, but actually, I love human resource development.
Yes.
I am in my element when I'm facilitating, or I'm training, or I even did EAPET facilitation.
Yes.
At some point, I managed a bursary program. So I realized, I'm in my element, and now it's interesting, the teaching that I've always wanted to do, I started for, and I kind of said, no, andifuni. It kind of followed me to training and development. So that's why that's how I ended up in HR. But then while I was in HR, then I grew, because I'm a kind of spirit who gets agitated quickly if I'm feeling I'm doing something A1 for the long for a very long time. So so when I left corporate, I was HR business partner.
Yes.
But I was doing a whole lot of different things within HR. So I would be your performance management, talent management, but I ended up in being an HR business partner.
Yes. Because when you were talking teaching, I could see that within the continuum of HR, there is this very important part, which is training and development. And some who don't really fancy themselves being in the classroom, in the way that we know it, actually they do well incorporate when they are within HR in the training and development space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's how I ended up there. Yeah.
Yes, and so you took a liking to it.
I did. I loved it. And I think it's because, okay, if I start with the bursary program management, the things that remember when I was telling you about the cultural shock getting into varsity, it was beautiful for me to watch a child who was given a bursary by this company that I was working for, and you are mentoring this child into. So it's not just about the financial support that the company gives them, but you are mentoring this child to undoba. Okay, evasithi kunjena, cultural shock, and from there, when you have to move now to corporate, these are the changes. This is how you dress. This is how you talk. You can't use a certain language, because it's not things that I was blessed enough to receive. For me, I was just there, and I had to swim myself. But also with the APET, you would find Lobaba, because I worked in a company like in an energy engineering space, it was a lot of Obaba.
Yeah.
So you would find Lobaba Oti, I don't even know how to hold a pen properly except to put an X. And Lobaba Ngoku, you are with him to a point where they say, "You're mistress." I was a mistress or serious doc. You're mistress. I can fill in form, yam. I don't have to ask my wife and fill in form, or I don't have to ask my children. Those kind of things. So it teaching followed me. It followed me, and I absolutely loved it.
And then what happened? What then?
Okay.
We're in the HR space. You are enjoying it. Did you stay within the training and development, or did you expand to other areas, employee engagement, employee wellness, recruitment, and labor relations, stuff like that within the continuum?
Okay, I ended up being HR business partner, which is a strategic business partner to e-business. So what would happen is you would have so I was looking after a risk assurance group. I was looking after the office of the managing director. I was looking after HR. And basically you are now a proactive HR in terms of, you don't say, Uzola is retiring, and then you now worrying who must replace this person. So as you're looking after this group, you're looking after talent management. Yabo into yoba the skill set sabo into yoba if the energy industry is changing, is skills are they changing to be able to what's the word,
to meet the
to meet
yeah,
to meet the new thank you, Doc. So you are more a proactive HR to say into performance you're doing performance management, you're doing employee engagement. And what I found was that within that space, because you are in management in HR, and you sit in management meetings, in terms of, I would sit at risk assurance meetings, but also you kind of a mediator, because important into your employee engagement into how are employees treated. And it's interesting into when you are let's say you sit in a management meeting, and there's obviously into sometimes decisions that are made that are not going to make the company popular, ne?
Yes.
And now you are the person now who has to go back to the business unit that you are looking after to pass the message. So it would be interesting in when you're passing that message, they now see you as in management, which you are, but they see you as the enemy, as if now you're not part of the employees of the company. So meaning whatever problem or new decision has come up forth, now we are affected. We understand. So that's what I did. It was performance management, talent management. It was part of because you mentioned wellness. So when you were doing performance management, for example, you find ufundile ngathi he's lacking. You can't just you firing this person, okanye ufundile comes to work drunk and he must go. Obviously there are processes, and part of those processes is understanding okay, what went wrong, and being able to engage with wellness to say how can we help this person, because I know lo muntu has been performing for this long, so what external assistance can this person have? Yes. And you'll find mhlawumbe omnye umuntu is stressing ekhaya because ubaba lost his job, and ngoku that's why ngoku naye stress, that's why now she's coming in emsebenzini late. So you'd look at ezo zinto ezinjalo, and you see you are dealing with humanities ngoku. Izinto eziaffecta abantu, because it's not just about HR and are you employing this person une skill, or are you training this person? You are now endlini yakhe lofundile into what are the things that are affecting him, that are causing him uba abe njena apha emsebenzini.
Mhlawumbi relationships,
Yes.
Or mhlawumbi ufumene i-summons ze-maintenance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of things. It's a lot of things. So we would be dealing with izinto ezinjalo. Omnye uyadivorsa, so that's why engathi absent-minded apha emsebenzini. And nina, if you're gonna look at it ngento no, but you absent-minded, or ii-report zakho azikho right, then you'll be missing the point.
Yes, lovely. Right. So how long did you stay in the HR space? Because I want us to get to the point where your underground crew started, wanting to deploy you.
I stayed there for 15 years.
Yeah.
I stayed there for 15 years, and then, okay. So with the type of work that I was doing,
yes,
I would find in my office is always, it's like cookie traffic.
Yeah.
There will be this person coming in, but I would pick up in yes, we were talking about umsebenzi, and sometimes the work that I'm doing would touch kwinto zangaphandle, like I said, ekhaya. But then now this person man undixelela ngomtshato wakhe, and I've never been married. Why is this person telling me about umtshato wakhe? And this is not now related to umsebenzi, you understand? So I would pick up this pattern of people coming in with their problems. Someone would come in and tell me something or go, hey, why are you even trusting me with lento? And when they leave, they would feel but I feel you had me. So you see that thing when I was growing up, and I would feel I'm not being had. Now, when people come to me, they feel heard because I know how it feels not to be heard. You understand? So I find i-office yam is always filled with izinto. They're not partly related to emsebenzini, but and interesting enough, one of my colleagues said to me, indoba, hey mani office yakho wena ingathi kuyi-office kagqirha. Why do you have? I promise you. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I don't know what. And at the time, and you see, when you don't know your gifts or the powers that uThixo akuphe zona and your ancestors, you're like, what is it that they see? What is it that they feel? Why are they trusting me with it? But you, they come back with the feedback. But you make me feel light. You make this, you make that, and yeah.
All right. And so that continued. Yeah, tell us.
That continued, and so the underground gang, I started having a lot of headaches. Like I would be this person who constantly having headaches. I'll injections and is like because of headaches. I normally say that my threshold for physical pain is like there. And so I would have these headaches. I can't sleep properly at night. Up emsebenzini, with the work that I was doing, I felt I'm not appreciated. I'm stressing. I'm unhappy. I fall out of the blue. And now I mentioned I'm short dog, so the woman wear heels. Now people say I know, but we saw this and you're like, no, I know, I just fell. Nothing happened, nothing tripped me. I fell. Anxiety attacks. Suddenly I would have these anxiety attacks and thinking I don't know what is happening.
It's like a panic attack, yeah?
A panic attack. And I can't say what is it that is causing me? Yes, I know I'm unhappy, but the way it's like there's something so huge. And I was getting sick all the time. 1 minute I'm having lumps in my breast and I'm going through all these tests because they suspect it breast cancer, and you know how who's out okay, this test, and then you must do a biopsy, and yes, and the waiting a period, and then we cleared. 1 minute I've got a back problem. I remember doctor saying to me, hi Miss Velaphi, inyani, because the kind of le pain othetha ngayo ngathi, are you sure awuna boyfriend ekushayayo? I'm like, no. I'm like, no, I just had this pain and I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know. So I had this, like I had apparently it disc shifted.
Yeah.
Yes, I ended up.
The slip disc, yeah.
Yes, I had that. But now, every time I would go to a doctor, like I would going from this doctor to this doctor, and they wouldn't see what's wrong with me. And then after 6 months of this pain. So it was the physical illnesses that I was having. I'm having these headaches. You know what I mean? Now, I don't want to go to bed because I know, I'm going to have these dreams. And they are so scary that I know, if I tell someone else, because you can't, or I would say, maybe I have a fight now, and then I go to bed, that you get.
Yeah.
And then I'll hear your voice, usithi ucela uxolo.
Yes.
How do I tell someone else ufundile that I fought with emsebenzini, ucele uxolo? in my dreams.
Yeah.
You know, so I would have these things, and I remember with the panic attacks, I would have this voice that says to me, Ndoba, jumpa, jumpa, and you'll feel better. Now, I was staying in a townhouse complex, and so obviously I can't be jumping around in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And now that I'm in this journey that I am right now, I realize when you're having those things, if we are cleanser, it helps.
Yeah.
So I was being told by man cleanser, but I did not recognize that as being told by man cleanser. So I would jump around because I'm like, okay, and okay, stick your head and you feel better. And the other things would be, someone would come to my office, or I go to their office, and I can see indoba lo muntu uyagula. I don't know how to articulate indoba ndithi uyagula lo muntu, because what is it that I'm seeing? But I would say indoba no. And you remember I mentioned how when you don't know a gift yako, you kind of a danger to yourself and to abanye abantu, because uba irresponsible in how you say things, because awazi wena there's something else engapha. So I would tell this person indoba no, uyagula, you should go home, or you should go to uyabona udoctor because awukho right. And the next thing, this person kwenzeke something emsebenzini azothathwa zii-ambulance, and people say uba why were you saying that? This other girl endithi said to me uba i-office yakhe ingathi kukwagqirha, wathi kum abantu bazawuthi uyathakatha wena, because you keep saying these things that you can't say about why are you saying le nto uyibone njani, but it was just something that that was there. So it's a whole lot of them, Doc. But one of my colleagues, most laa nto kwisixhosa sentoba isiduko senu, when you share the same claim, so that's your brother or that's your sister.
Yeah.
So we ended up finding out intoba ungumamtlane.
Yeah.
And she said to me intoba no man, umama wam une-St. John's, and maybe you should come and see, because isn't
the St. John's Church?
St. John's Church, yes.
St. John's Church, the one that is, it's more African apostolic type of churches.
Yes. Ngesaa sikhathi ke Doc ndihamba I don't want to mention their names. Charismatic church.
Yes.
Yamba charismatic churches, people are there. And sorry?
Were you born again?
I wasn't exactly born again, because I was like, there's certain things I still want to do, so I don't want to be a hypocrite. So, but I would go to ESL group and, I try to read this Bible, but for some reason, I didn't like reading this Bible. And so I was going to these churches, and when I'm standing there, people are having their hands up and saying, thank you, Jesus. And then I'm like, Ebetuna, what's going on with me? Because why am I not? And at some point, I even thought about maybe I'm ungodly.
Yeah.
But and is realizing that, and I try to convince myself, but I know I love God, but I don't understand why is it that I can't feel what this other people are feeling.
You couldn't speak in tongues?
No, I couldn't speak in tongues.
Yeah.
I actually have an interesting story about that, Doc.
Yeah.
In the cell group that I was in, they were trying to teach me to speak in tongues. And obviously now I kind of had a demon because I couldn't speak in tongues.
Yeah.
But now my thing was, isn't it supposed to be a gift that just comes and then you start speaking in tongues? Why must I be taught to speak in tongues?
Well, it should be the Holy Spirit taking over, and then you speak in that language. Yeah.
You see, so I always had a thing with this rebellious side. No, man. You're not gonna tell me intoba I must not listen to uzonke or lira. I must listen to gospel all the time. No, you're not gonna tell me intoba you're going to teach me to speak in tongues. You understand? So anyway, so this friend of mine said intoba try in St. John's. Now I haven't even mentioned, Doc, the side of relationship-wise men and the strange things that would happen there. So anyway, she says to me, no, join this church. I mean, go to this church. I'm like, oh, okay, it's a church in India. I'm like, okay. Nasekaya, I knew in the St. John, so I went there. And fortunately, like I said, umama wakhe ngumamntana because ungumntana entombi. And umama wakhe was like, yo, mntanam, jonga uyathwasa wena, even before we sat down, you know. So she started telling me, so we sat down, like abathandazeli wena, Doc, base St. John's.
Faith healers.
Yes, it's actually someone who had a gift of ubugqirha, abanye babo. And then yes, and then they would convert. So obviously they would have laa nto bakwazi ukuhlola. So one hlola okay, and then explain some of the dreams that I would have and the things that I was supposed to do. So now I called home and I'm like, okay, I went to this church and this is what I was told. And then they asked me, you need to come back and then sihambeni as a family. Now I'm coming from a family engazange ndiyibone mna isiya emagqirheni.
Yes.
Ne? So I go to my cousins from the father side, and now ootata bonke basweleka, so it's only us children. So we go to lo mama. At the time, I don't even know the difference between iqhwele negqirha. So we go to lo mama, but lo mama kept asking me about, okay, so what's happening? Ufila ntoni, ubona ntoni? And then she'd be like, ay, bazama ungcolisa igama lakho, and then she gives me amayeza to use, umuthi.
Yeah.
But I had this thing, you know, no man, there's something strange. At TV, you would see some smoke, and you would see some clapping, and you would see basiyavuma. Why is, you know, why is this one not saying these things? We understand.
This one is just a herbalist.
We did not even know the difference. We did not even know the difference. So, and like I said, you know, but Otata passed away. You understand? So when I came out of there, I'm like, no, man, there's something not right about this thing, because why
you were expecting a diviner and you found a herbalist.
Exactly. But now going back to Lendo Benditechi, when you don't know your gifts, I could not really trust into I was being told even Galondo of me questioning this thing,
This is not
actually
the place.
This is not the place, because I didn't understand my own power or my own gifts. So we left, but it took me 4 years before I actually accepted Indoba, you know what, let me do this thing, because within that 4 years, I kind of, whereas doctor was Qinisile at St. John's, like I would go and then I'd be introduced to Indoba, awungalayita ikhandlela, you know, and pray over it. But even the dreams, everything now was intensifying Indoba. Actually, you need to get out of here. And for some reason, strangely enough, as much as when I decided I wanted to go to a Joburg to get umsebenzi, I've never really liked Joburg. There was just something that I felt soul yami is not at home. But now it was something that I just could not articulate. What is this feeling?
Yeah. But how did you feel when you were at St. John's as compared to the other charismatic church that you used to visit as well? Was there
there was a difference. There was a difference because I wouldn't really say I felt at home, but I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel lost and feel into about, okay, what is it that they're feeling, and when they are having izandla zabo phezulu and all of these things. I didn't have that. I felt I felt ingathi ndiyabhilonga. I wouldn't really say I felt at home like completely, but I felt ingathi, and I think it's because also I could feel a difference with me going there. Indoba, okay, so if I use El Kandlela and pray, and I do this thing, 12 o'clock, I'm gonna wake up and pray, and then I'm gonna wake up at 3 o'clock and pray. I can see indoba it does something to me. So it was much better.
Yeah, lovely. All right, and then kwenzeka ntoni? Because to a point where ngoku kunyanzelekile uba man, I think I need to accept that I've got an ancestral calling and I must respond positively to it.
Okay. So I did a lot of research. I used the 4 years in Tetangayo to try to understand indoba what is this thing about. Firstly, when I was told, my first thought was, sure, and not wear heels and not wear makeup, and
Yes.
but this thing I'm fit.
Yeah.
You understand? And you'd hear stories and about people go to them because bafuna udlisa abantu. I'm not that person. Why, like, would someone would come to me and ask me to do that? And so this thing can't be godly. So I would have these questions. I would do my research. I started following abantu even like with social networks. And so it was such a relief for me to see someone that I can relate to, ofana nam, only lady who has accepted the ancestral calling, and I'll be like, oh, okay, so this thing is not bad. So it means that even when I have if I have accepted it, it's not like I won't be able to wear lipstick yam if I want to wear ilanduka lipstick yam. It doesn't mean I won't be able to wear these heels. So I used that 4 years to learn a whole lot of things that I needed to learn, and also to unlearn. One, before ungene ephehlweni, remember, I didn't grow up with family. As much as akhona amasiko that we did, umzekelo imbeleko.
Yes.
Which is actually because we're using that term wrong. It's not imbeleko, uqatywa, but that's a story for another day. So we did that. Ubrother wami uyile esuthwini, yes, woluka. I've seen kwenziwa umqombothi ekhaya, even though I didn't understand uba wenzelwani. So we did kancinci, but not yes. So now I use that 4 years ukuba senze imisebenzi besi-owa as a family. Umzekelo laa nto into yoba umntu ongutata xa eswelekile efemelini funeka akhatshwe ngenkomo aphinde abuyiswe, and I had to understand into yoba what does that mean xa kuthiwa uyabuyiswa. Uyabuyiswa into yoba uzawuba lidlozi elihle lalapha ekhaya and protect you. I had to understand. Sorry?
When I was practicing in Port Elizabeth, in the early part of my professional career, in PE, they did a lot of that thing. You go to so and I was like, what a waste of money. Why do you waste money sending the person away? Then you're going to waste money again bringing this person. Why don't you just keep them? It didn't make sense. And at that time, it didn't make sense. I thought it's a waste of money. And those days, I had not done, my thesis for my master's, where I chose this particular topic. So I was just not understanding this thing. But obviously, later on, I got to understand. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I did that. So yonke la misebenzi that we were owing as a family, because when you have to enter ephehlweni, which is isikolo se initiation,
yes,
there's 2 separate things. there's izinto zasekhaya that needs to be fixed first, and then there's izinto zakho ke ngoku to heal you, because when you get called, you don't get called to heal only yourself, you get called also to heal into zasekhaya. You understand? So I did that, but again, as I'm doing that and doing my research and learning into yoba yintoni le nto xa kuthiwa yimbeleko, what is that, yenzelwa ntoni, ne? Iya-intensify yona these things. The dreams are really intensifying into yoba, to a point into yoba I would have a dream ebonisa into yoba itshoba and or I would have a dream where these hills that I love so much zophuke, and then after yophukile ndiboniswe i-grass mat, ikhuko, and then this voice would say sit. You know, so they were intensifying ngapha, and it most xana ungumntana weTongo, there's a lot of people not liking you for whatever strange reason. As much as you're drawing a lot of people, there's also others. So all of those things were intensifying. So eventually I decided, you know what, I understand what a gift, your this ancestral calling is about. I understand, apart from you are healing generational curses ezikhona kwifamily yakho, but you are healing your family, you are healing your lineage, because I realized the more modernized and the more educated we have become, is the more we have moved away from the things that make us African. And it means, and if it means I'm chosen to be that person who heals this thing, who heals lineage, then I'm accepting that, because now I have an understanding. I'm not going to accept it because I want to get my life back in order. I'm accepting it because I understand what it means. I understand the importance of yayo. So I thought, okay, it means I must resign from emsebenzini, because I knew I needed to go back home. So I couldn't do it.
There's no leave for somebody who wants to go and undergo ukutwasa
training. Exactly.
You know, so, in HR will not cover that. It will have to be unpaid leave.
No. And I was part of people who were writing HR policies, but obviously I would not have won that one.
Yes.
So I resigned. I rented out my place. I obviously had to arrange for umntana for iskolo, and I packed my 19 years of being a Joburg. Yes, and I moved back home, and that's where again.
That's about the time when we attended the funeral Kakoliswa, right?
Yes,
or was it before?
No, it was around that. I moved here in 2017, but I started I started my journey in 2018.
Yes. But where I met you, you were a speaker, one of the speakers at the funeral Kakoliswa.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you got to the Eastern Cape, and you now are here on a mission to actually accept this calling, coming from a family that does not really understand, this thing. But there's something you did not tell us about. When you said, I go to this St. John's, whatever, and then the family said, come back, let's all go and have a consultation. Did it actually confirm that indeed you are the one who has been chosen?
No, actually, we went after we realized indoba we had to go to another one who confirmed this. Now,
so
that
now
one,
you are in the Eastern Cape, Gemant. right?
Okay.
You left Johannesburg, you rented out your house, and you're now like, okay, I am going to do this thing.
Yes. So now it's got its own dynamics. Now I mostly when you go to a patron, you have to consult abantu abadala bakowenu and say into yoba, okay, not patron, sorry, kwigqirha, we are going to go and consult sithatha intonga.
Yeah.
When you get there, you get whatever story that you get, you must come back and say into yoba, okay, this is the story.
Yeah.
Now my mother is stressed into yoba, I am a person who was a domestic worker, abantwana bam bahamba bayofunda, and my child is living this beautiful life at Joburg, and now this child is coming back home and telling me into yoba uzayobala igqirha and walk bare feet.
Yeah. And there's black tax issues as well. Who is going to attend to those issues?
You know, so and so it was not a we welcome it. This thing is going to happen. There were conflicts. There were conflicts, but one of the things I appreciate about my mother is that in the midst of a conflict, she always understands into yoba, my first thing is to support you as my child. I might not like this thing that you have chosen, because with a lot of people who are not they don't really believe in yoba you don't choose it. We understand. So there was that to a point, you know, when I talk.
Yeah.
When I first had my intsimbi zam,
yeah,
if I would put it in my mother's bed, my mother would be like, hey, susa ezi zinto zakho apha, because ingathi uzomsulela
yes.
ngobugqirha. So it does cause conflicts with the family, because obviously there are people who think into yoba you are irresponsible, into yoba how do you just leave a job, a permanent job, and just leave and then come back. And the worst thing is I came back home and stayed with my mother. How uyahlanya lo?
Yes.
You know, and obviously in fact one thing I just have to mention, Doc. When I went to my GP with the headaches, one of the things that we spoke, because we had a very good relationship, one of the things she said to me was the things that were happening. So she would play psychologist even though she was my GP.
Yeah.
She said to me, Ndoba, you're showing signs of depression.
Yeah.
Izinto zakho. And umama was at St. John's. What happens, mntanam, is when the Western doctors don't understand this thing, they say, Ndoba, you have depression. So when she said that, I was like, yo, GP wam is saying this thing, and no mama said this thing 4 years ago. So anyway, coming back home, you have those people about maybe nyanu depressed, Selina, and maybe you should go and take the tablets and do whatever things, because nobody in their right mind would just leave.
Up and go.
Yes, and then wenza lento uyokwenza lento amaqaba. Oh, Nkosi yami, mntanami, are you gonna go? You know, and it's not attractive, Demos. You know, it's not attractive at all. So anyway, I got umntu, or now I'm not one of those people who was shown igqirha that they're supposed to go to. So I got umntu, and I think one of my soul lessons kule journey was that the person I went to, I chose them from a place of ego.
Yes.
And I'm saying that, Doc, because she was driving a car, she was a lady, you know, and I thought, it can't be bad. And she was saying, no, you don't have to come and stay in my house. You can just come for whatever sebenzi. And my ancestors were like, actually, that's not how it goes. And then they removed me from corner. But I don't want to get into.
Yes, no, let's not get into that. Yeah.
Yeah, so and then I start ke ngoku ephehlweni. We have, sorry,
Ephehlweni proper now.
ephehlweni proper now. So we have a thing called imvuma, no?
Imvuba gula.
Yes, imvulatasi. So we have a registration fee, doc. So you do imvulatasi to say into yoba i-ancestors zam that I work with ziyamkelwa kule family yalo mama uligqirha, so that this person can be my guide in this journey. And yes, and it's important into yoba you come with umntu wakulo tata and then you come to umntu wakulo mama.
Yes.
So I went there with umalume, and then I went there with abo cousins, because fortunately kwecala lakulo mama I still have abo malume.
Yes.
And remember I mentioned how I grew up with family with mother figures as strong.
Yes.
My appreciation for the males in your family and abo malume came when I started the journey. Because that's where you know into yoba there's things that you can't do because ucinga into yoba iza kwenziwa ngumama okanye ngumakazi only. It can't happen. So they malume, they play a major role ebomini, especially in this journey.
No dubs, banendawo yabo kodwa.
Yes, no, kakhulu.
Orahati. And
so I started and then you come with imvulatasi, with whatever mali abathetha ngayo nezo bhotile zethu, and there's rules obviously with how you dress. That one thing that frustrated me, into yoba andizunxiba izihlangu and my heels and I'm gonna walk a back feet. It's interesting, but it's also one of soul lessons, because I'm an advocate for grounding. I know the importance of your feet touching umhlaba. You understand? So some of the things that
but let me just come in there, and it's not just an African spirituality thing.
Yes.
I mean, for example, when you're looking at the Asian spirituality, when they talk about chakras, chakra 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 7. Chakra 1, it's about, taking time, being in touch with nature, walking barefoot, and all of that, grounding you like that. So it's actually a universal thing.
That's correct. It is. So and I think it helped the 4 years where I was doing the learning, because one of the things with ephehlweni, and I think it's a generational gap thing, with our mama, and I'm gonna say mama because I never had igqirha eliyindoda. Mama bangabagqirha, they don't say to you into yoba you are walking barefoot because they don't say into yoba you are doing this thing because you are just thrown in the deep end. Then it's up to you to figure out why is this thing happening, and and I think part of the reason for that is for you to trust intuition yakho nawe into yoba so you don't get spoon fed izinto. So I get the ephehlweni, you get told the rules zakhona, how you dress, the things that you can't do, the food that you can't eat, because ukutya esukutyayo can be poison in system zethu. And obviously, there's a lot of ukuphalaza ebugqirheni, there's a lot of ukucima and because impurity is something that is not welcome there. But also, obviously, when as a doctor, you'll understand it, but icolon yakho xa imdaka, then that is it's like a place for ukugula konke makuze. Now, in terms of spirituality, awukwazi umamela kakuhle xana uzaba mdaka.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, understand. So you get told ezo zinto. Now, usisi wakho ke doc, corporate, I'm used to traveling. I would go to 5-star hotels. Ndifika phaa ndirhuqa suitcase,
Mm.
a huge one at that. I've got my fleece gown and my slippers and my and my toiletry bags. And I can see intoba there's looks of judgment. Intoba, hey bo,
Hey.
you know? And yeah, I had my other cultural shock. Intoba, I did not need all of those things because yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, you have journeyed through, you have undergone the training. Are you done with the training?
Andakagoduswa, which is the
Which is the last part, you know.
yeah.
But there's the training part where you then finish, but
Yes.
your principal must then take you home to
Yes.
basically hand you over to your people that the training that you wanted is done. So
Yes.
that part is not yet done.
That's the part that has not been done, doc.
And it's a
So
costly part.
it is a costly part, but also nayo, it's got its own things. You remember I was mentioning how it's important to know about there's things zekhaya that are supposed to be done
Yes.
while you are doing ezakho.
Mm.
So in the process I learned of umsebenzi womnye utata omkhulu walapha ekhaya ongazange enzelwe wenkomo. Now I cannot do lo msebenzi wenkomo mna as umzukulwana wakhe when yena engazange ayenzelwe into enenkomo, which is if someone ebengumuntu yes,
you need to attend to those things before you could actually do yours. Otherwise, these ones are going to be jealous. That's why do you prioritize when this has not been done for long?
Exactly. So bona bayakunika the leeway yento ba okay, you've done certain ones, so you can start with but awuzude uhambe ke ngokuthi uyowisa inkomo because there's this kweleti. So ideally, if umuntu financially position right, they will do everything, and then when they start lena yabo, they know into ba there's no squeleties.
Yeah. All right. But just reflecting on, because I want us to get to the book now, reflecting on the training part, that is ukutwasa, right? Reflecting, by the way, there is somebody here who's asked a question, because I keep on checking here. There's a lady, Ubulelwa Gwagwa, has asked a question, and I thought, let me quickly answer it, but correct if I'm wrong on it.
Okay.
The question is, what is the difference between Ikwele, Igriha, and Isangom? Now, let me just answer that, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Okay? Ikwele is basically a herbalist, somebody who knows a lot about herbs with medicinal properties, all right, or healing properties. And that's normally a gift that's passed on from one person to the other, usually a father to a son, you know. So that is equal. So all they do is to actually know medicines and their properties.
That's correct.
There is no calling as such for that. Igriha or Isangoma is the same thing. Amazulu ati Isangoma. Amaxhosa ati ligriha. Okay, you'll correct me, all right?
That is correct.
Yeah, but basically, here the ancestors call you. You have a calling to become a healer.
Yes.
All right, and they have to accept that calling and undergo the training before you can become a healer.
That is correct.
Right. So that is Isangoma or Ikwel. Then there are faith healers. All right, or prophets. Those are the people who don't heal using herbs as such. They heal through prayer, through water, through tea, use of candles and things like those. I hope I have clarified Ubulelwa Gwagwa on these three. And in terms of our law in South Africa, by the way, traditional healing is legal in South Africa. You know, since the passing of the Act 22 of 2007, called Traditional Health Practitioner Act, Act 22 of 2007. It now recognizes that traditional healers are part of our healthcare system in South Africa. However, the statutory body that was formed, an interim statutory body to regulate the industry, has not yet come up with norms and standards and all of those things so that it can be regulated like us from a medical point of view. So that's my 2 cents worth there, but you can continue, Selina.
Okay. Where was
So
I?
you have finished your training. You are
Yes.
waiting to be taken home, but there are some outstanding matters that have
Yes.
to do with the family that need to be sorted out before you could be brought back as a sign now that you are qualified under this principle of yours. You are now ready to actually be the one who can now see and consult people, you know, as guided by your underground crew.
That is correct, Doc.
Yeah.
That is correct. Yes.
So and then at what point did you decide, by man, you know, and I want to include this thing?
Actually, remember when I was mentioning how I was going to these churches and
okay,
yeah,
yes.
yes, I was going to these churches and I was like, no man, there's something I'm missing. I remember I came out of this church and I was looking around at people and hey, basemoyeni abantu, and I'm not feeling anything. And I had recruited a sister wam to this church. And when we came out, sister wam was like, Yemntase, why do you keep coming here? Because when I was busy, hey, yabona lo, hey, there's no God. Hey, yabona lo, unja. So I'm busy seeing things and yabo izinto is wrong. Then I realized I'm going to church because it's a box that I needed to tick. On Sundays you go to church, and it feels good when my mother asks me, oh, so guys, benile on Sunday, and I'm like, yes, we did. When I came back home, I started typing. So the prologue is actually a page that I wrote back in Joburg after coming from church, and I wrote that. Remember, I said Ndoba, that's what I always did when I'm feeling something. So 2018, I'm still in this process, and this journey is very frustrating, ne? Because so city, you know what, I got this, and then something goes haywire, and you sit down and you're like, maybe I shouldn't have accepted this thing. It's frustrating, and this and this and this. And then I went back to my laptop, and I was like, there was a book that I started writing. Maybe let me write. So at the time, I'm not thinking, I'm going to publish, but I just feel, I need to write. And then I started writing. And then
I was it
yes.
more like a journaling your journey or whatever experience?
Yes, it was. So as I'm writing this, I'm busy concentrating on this thing. The underground gang was like, okay, my laptop broke, so everything now that had to do with me writing this thing, it was a mess. So I stopped. So it was only 2019 when at least I had done a lot in terms of Ilanduka Genium, that I started writing. And then as I was writing, obviously now with the use of social networks, about Facebook, I would share some of the things. When I was telling you about me coming with this big suitcase and people laughing at me. So I start writing, obviously without talking about the sacred things. So I would start sharing these things that were very funny and frustrating at times. And I realized, Ndoba, apart from Indoba, my storytelling was people would laugh, and people would say, you are removing this curtain secrecy. But a lot of people were healing from ezo zinto. So people would start asking me, hey, I have this problem, and I have this, and then I have this. You understand? So a lot of people are going through spiritual awakenings. Then I was like, actually, let me write this book with the intention of publishing. And now, because I had that intention, I was intentional also with Indoma, with whatever that it is that I'm writing, as much as it's part of my healing, but I must be educating with my storytelling. So that's how this whole writing of books started. So it's been basically 6 years.
So you had to find a publisher, or are you self-published? What did you do?
Okay, I'm self-published, but I did try the route publishers. I was rejected. I would send emails, I would post my manuscript, and I would get rejected. But I've always been a person, okay, I'm having this challenge, so okay, I'm gonna cry about it, and then okay, what's next? What must I do? So I started researching those people who actually self-published, sitting story sabo, and then I would realize, okay, so someone can be successful from self-publish. Or reject does not necessarily mean what you are writing is not good, but e-publishing houses, obviously they have criteria zabo, and they're also making money. So if they feel story sakho mhlambi, it's not something that can sell.
It's not aligned to their strategy of the type of books that they wanna produce.
Exactly. Exactly. So then I thought of, well, let me self-publish. Now, I did my research in terms of self-publishing, because now it means that you're not only writing the book, you must think about the layout, you must think about what cover that you want, and what do you want the cover to mean, the name. You must think in the international standard, the ISBN number. So all of those things now, they fall on your lap. You understand? So that's what I did.
So you did it the hard way without advisors around you, basically.
I did it the hard way, and
but it's much more fulfilling the day that book ifika ezandleni zakho.
It was. I can stop it. It was, Doc, because when my mother said to me, because like I said, Ndoba, I've always loved to read, so I have a bookshelf full of books. So when my mother was like, Imamtanam, when you say, Ndoba, you've written a book, and yeah, Brenda, you mean a book like these books that you have up? Yes, like these books that you have. And you know what's so interesting with the story? I read your brother's book, ne?
Yes.
So I took out your brother's book, and I'm like, you see this guy who wrote, this is the guy from Garbage Trans guy. I know brother work.
Yes,
so I'm trying to say, yes, but I could see, she's like, okay, did you know people write? You find people from Soweto, from Kukuletu who write. So it was a great feeling, and knowing every single thing I did it myself, and I was like, yo, igama kulivumile.
Yes. And so reception, maybe before I get to that question, just for people who have not yet bought the book, J ubete amagabantshintshi, man, just overview Juba, in 5 minutes, just tell people ukuba the ncwadi, kwenzeka ntoni ngaphakathi, just bendifuna ugeza ubona nje
geza Doc,
laa nto kuthiwa nje like iminiskirt, yabo, ukhavarisha into ezithile, yaqonda, but it leaves enough interest, yaqonda. So nje kancinci, we still need to go and buy it.
I hear you loud and clear, Doc.
Yeah.
Okay. The book is called Beautifully Broken. I will get to why I chose that title. Oh, okay. So I've always been a what I call a walking contradiction.
Yes.
Because like I mentioned earlier, I'm a bit of a rebel in terms of
Yes.
certain things, but also I bakuthiwa nazi rules, and I don't want to break rules. And for no, you understand?
Yes.
If you look at me now, obviously I'm a traditionalist in Diligriha, but I'm also modern. So I've always
Yes.
been a walking contradiction, which is something I mentioned in the book as well.
Mm.
So for me, Beautifully Broken was, I felt Indoba, I have been broken so much by life and the things that were happening, but there is so much beauty in that brokenness because of the things ezenzekileyo. Here I am now able to produce something called a book, and I'm now called the author, or I'm going to be called the author because many I published at the time. I'm going to be called author. So there's always beauty in something. I society esikuyo always reminds us of flaws zethu, but there's beauty in flaws zakho.
Yes.
So that's where the title came from. And basically, it's a story of about my life. It takes you from when I was growing up, my influences, ukufunda kwam esikolweni to varsity, my experience of varsity life, like I mentioned, coming from Ibantu education. It talks about my indlela endayi-experience ngayo Johannesburg, this big city of gold, and my experiences there. It touches on corporate and the things that frustrate us into the microaggression that you experience as a woman, corporate. So it touches on those things. It also touches, then it moves from Apo to when I found out about calling Yam. What are the things that I had experienced for me to know Indoba I have this calling? What are the things that I have learned now about Indoba? What is it, this thing your and then it gives you a glimpse of what is happening and so that's
without divulging much of the sacred secrets,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
So it's my healing journey, and the reflections Ndoba. If you take notice, you will see Ndoba, some of the things that senzeka ebomini bakho were preparing you for the role. You mentioned earlier, Doc, Ndoba, when you were asking me about the HR, and you kept on saying Ndoba, my experiences there. Lando bensithi kuwe, someone mentioned Ndoba, why is your office ngathi kukwagqirha?
Yes.
We understand. I was mentioning how it didn't just end up with into say HR, but it would end up now trying to understand the background yalo. I did psychology, and we spoke about ezo zinto. I wanted to be a teacher, and now I'm in a position where I'm using my calling to educate about into zasebugqirheni. So
in a different way, you are a teacher, but of matters spiritual.
Yes, precisely. So the book is basically about Londole.
Yes. I'm interested in that title. It intrigued me, the title, Beautifully Broken. Just take us through what the thinking around that. Because, you see, I found myself this past Friday posting something about mosaics, and as I was doing that, I wrote something that included Beautifully Broken, and I thought, I'm going to credit you because that phrase, I got it from the title of your book.
Yes. Yeah. I think, like I say, Doc, in society esikuyo, it always reminds us of the flaws.
Yes.
It will remind you into like I said, but you went to education. How can you do English 101?
Yeah.
In society esikuyo would say into oh, okay, Yo, uyashiywa, so there's another girl, then it means there's something wrong with you. I-society esikuyo says into yoba, oh, so you got rejected by publishers, then it means you're not good enough. But for a lot of people, they get stuck on the things yes, on the
redirection.
Yes, exactly. So they don't see the redirection but kulapho apho usiwa khona. It's just that your eyes are so focused on le ubuxelelwa ngaye that you're not seeing you're not seeing the beauty of the challenge. I always believe in there's always a gift in any challenge.
Yeah.
But if you're not looking for the gift within that challenge, then umzekelo, if I look at my life and how it's a challenge, ubane calling. It's a challenge because it's not an easy journey. A lot of things will happen to you for you to be kula position. But now, when I look at family because of a gift, like I mentioned, when you get called, you don't get called just for yourself. When I look at the family and someone else says, yo, uncedile mntasekhaya with this thing, then you see where the beauty of the brokenness that I had experienced in my life comes in. And it's interesting, but even abantwana basekhaya, the cousin, nabo malume, the respect that they would give you befuna ukumamela into yoba uthini, because they understand into yoba kuthethi wena. There's abantu abadala who are talking. So even they won't even say uba mtshana, or or say into yoba mntasekhaya. They would say gogo nondwe, and give you that respect. So I'm an advocate, not dog, for into yoba there's beauty in the world. You need to find it. Yes, there can be a whole lot of things that try to break you, but look for the beauty because it's there.
Yes, as I'm talking to you now, I'm looking at some of the quotations that I was going through before I chose that one. The one that I put on Friday says, "When things in life shatter and there is no hope for reassembly, use the pieces to create a mosaic that's even more awesome and beautiful than what you started with." There's another one, by T.J. Phillips. It says, if your world starts falling apart, pick up the pieces and create a glorious mosaic. Right?
I love that.
The last one. This one is by Pope John Paul II. He says, none of us is alone in this world. Each of us is a vital piece of a great mosaic of humanity as a whole. So your journey is not for yourself. You've got a unique journey, and that journey is for humanity as a whole. And appreciate your unique journey, difficult as it may be, because it's part of your life purpose, as part of being in the mosaic that is supposed to benefit humanity. Yeah,
when you're looking at it like a tapestry.
Yes.
Ne? It's got, just like a mosaic, it's got this, when you're looking at it, it's got this beautiful doors, but they woven, like they would do something like this, but they would, and it's got pretty colors and all of that. But when you look at back, mess. So now a lot of people concentrate back, no, but this, this person said this thing to me. And if you're gonna look at it back, yellow tapestry, you will not appreciate the beauty yayo front, because back that I'll bring it over, turn it around, and then you're gonna see it beauty. So that's where that's where the title of my book came. And strangely enough, Doc, when I was doing a research about my book, I obviously I would read I had 5 titles And then I was like, okay, this one. And I'm like, no. And then this one. I never had any other title. It was just this one.
Beautiful.
I never, yes, I never had any. It was just one thing that I was so sure about. But the title is this, and the color green.
Kandibonise le ncwadi iphi kaloku kutheni kude. You can switch off the camera, go and get that book. I want you to show the people.
Nancy incwadi, doc. It's not very far from me.
Okay. It shouldn't. Okay. And yeah. Now Selina Velaphi, Beautifully Broken. It's a memoir, right? La picture, what does it, you chose that picture,
I chose this picture because it's a face of someone crying. So I was intentional in Doba, it must have a tear running, but I was intentional in Doba, ubuso bakhona must be very close up, because I didn't want the reader to be distracted by features zalomntu. Oh, she's got a beautiful nose, or she's this, or she's that. Focus ibe on the eye and the crying. I've always believed in Doba amehlo at the window to your soul. Yes, at the window to your soul. So that's where my thinking came from.
Yes.
And then the color green, green represents wealth. Green represents rebirth. Green represents things that grow. Even like I'm a gardener, when you're planting something, you plant a seed, brown or whatever the color may be. But the minute ikula ibe green, meaning this thing that you dug into a dark brown soil, it comes out ibe something that
germinates and becomes a plant.
Something that nourishes.
Yes. I think about a year or two ago, I had to assist my daughter with a project, cotyledons, dicotyledons, and all of that, how a seed, germinates and then becomes a plant, and the energy that is stored in those cotyledons and all of those things. So basically, in this old thing, a seed that doesn't give hope, actually, you are able to get something fresh.
Yes.
That can give life.
Yes. You just need to open your eyes. You need to be a student of life and understand it. Even the things, I always say that pain is a messenger.
Yes.
Any pain that comes is a messenger. Pay attention to something. Umzekelo, doc, when you go in my space of work, when you go to igqirha, and you say I don't know, there's something okanye emsebenzini, I'm unhappy with this.
Yeah.
We don't say oh, okay, here's a tablet or here's a herb that you must take. You have to take through that person why did you get to be kule nto, and you'll find out actually it's things zasekhaya, and it's ukhokho mhlambi who's unhappy, but you understand lo mntu abengazanga apha esithi hayi ukhokho uthe ufike ethetha ngento yasemsebenzini, and someone else might feel those things are not related, kanti they are. That is why healing yakhona is more holistic, because it doesn't just look at the pain ozanayo. So I'm a believer any pain is a messenger take a look. It's unfortunate abanye abantu spend so much time concentrating on the pain, angafuni ubona what is the lesson, or they don't open themselves up to be student of life.
Yes. And in fact, okay, now I'm going to talk as a Western trained doctor, a family physician. I mean, when I was studying then, we used to talk about holistic, approach, which was biopsychosocial, physical, psycho-emotional, and social. So meaning, xa ndibona patient, consider zontathu and not just focus on one of them. That's in family medicine. However, 20 years later now, since I qualified as a family physician, we now, since 2001, there's a gentleman called, a doctor called Sumalski, who in 2001 came with a broader holistic approach in healthcare or in health, is biopsychosocial spiritual, meaning spirituality is central to the holistic healing of a human being. All right. However, obviously, the difficulty about spirituality is that some of the things are difficult to prove through research. And so because of that, and the orthodox training that we had, which is more biomedical, it becomes very difficult to embrace something that cannot be proven objectively like that. But that does not mean it is not a critical component. Like you said, one of the 10 drivers, of the new millennium worldwide is the rising spirituality of human beings. All right. To an extent that in the US, some people are now trying to retrace, African Americans, retrace their steps back to Africa as a way of trying to connect, because they feel something is short, So it is a universal thing that is happening, the rising need for spirituality. And as Orthodox, medical professionals, we have to embrace it. Otherwise, we're going to be irrelevant. But anyway,
that's so interesting.
But that is not, about that. This is about you. This is your interview. Now, where can people get this book of yours?
Okay. Before I talk about that, Doc, can I just add something to what you said? Yeah. The story about the tooth.
Yeah.
I once went to a dentist to take out my a wisdom tooth,
yeah.
And I went back the following day, and the specialist dentist that I ended was so annoyed with me. We fought, and I left. And I understood the underground gang did not want me to take out Elazing.
Yes.
Now, if you're going to a dentist who is not open-minded about this part of spirituality, they won't understand. The one who's open-minded enough to know will get it. But anyway, my book. For now, I'm selling the book from no suitcase, basically. So I'm selling it from the suitcase, from the or the boot of the car. And you can send me WhatsApp or call me on 063 219 2926.
Okay, go back again. Yeah.
Okay, the number is 063 219 2926. Or Antumele DM or messenger on Facebook. Facebook wam Selina Velaphi. And then Instagram handle yam is SELSV, which is SELSVEE.
Oh, they can search via using Selina Velaphi. It will show them your handle.
Yes. And then a copy is 250. But if someone is outside East London, then they add 100 Rand for postnet fee.
Yes. All right. Now, there is a question here, Sister, before we need to wrap up now. Pumela Gwengu on Facebook is asking a question. Is it true that if you have a calling, one has to ensure that you constantly practice healing to others? It can be done by laying hands upon others like pastors do, or being in the medical field, or being a community worker, being a social worker, being in advisory position, or working in impoverished communities. So this person just wants to know if that is the truth or not.
It is the truth, Pumela.
Yes.
God, one thing that God wants from us as human beings is to serve humanity.
Yes.
And therefore, when you are in a healing space, and I always say that being a healer does not necessarily mean into yoba uzaba healer ube ligqirha.
Yeah.
Wena as Dr. Fundi Lenyathi, you are a healer. Someone else who's a singer and someone else feels into umculo wakhe heals is a healer. Abanye they heal.
Ringo heals through song.
Exactly. So a lot of things or callings zabantu, those people are healers. So it is true intoba if you are a healer, then you get called, because xana bekubiza abantu abadala, Pumela, it's not necessarily mean intoba all of us are going to throw bones and you come in and we say intoba, okay, this is what I see. Some of us, healing yethu will be through umzekelo. With my book, I am healing through story healing. So
Yes.
as long as you are in a space where you are healing and serving humanity.
All right. A question from me, and that's the last one. We need to close. The beads, there's 4 colors I can see. I can see white, I can see blue, I can see red. Is there any significance in the colors? We sometimes hear that they appear in your dreams and you are told which colors to have, or you actually see them. So for you, those colors, any significance?
They do. So the first one, a blue, I mean a white, that doesn't have something in the upper end. Yeah, this is you saying indoba you have accepted calling Yakowin, so it would be the first one. And then there's the second one that has this is iphathi goat. So it means I have passed this stage semvuma kufa.
Yeah.
Which
Yes.
is rebirth.
Yeah.
And then this one, the blue one,
yeah,
it means ungumntu wasemanzini. And at times for others, it would mean ubuthandazela ubuprofeti, because you find out intoba some people they have a combination of ne? And then the red one would be abantu abasemaweni. So when people say intoba some ancestors reside in the mountains and yes. So they all represent something, and also with these ones. So they go with this. It's actually 3. So it's the one ehamba with the one plane, ne? To say intoba accept part of the problems esibanazo doc, physical pains zithanda uba sezihlahleni. So these parts and these parts, your head, which is why you see intoba sinxiba nalapha, ankles, and this part and your knee.
Yeah.
So you would wear ezi in those parts because we like sithanda uba nee-pains kuzo, and yes, the pains iyamka. That science you were talking about, that cannot be proven. And then the white one, it goes with the one endithe yemvuma kufa.
Yes.
And then this one, it goes yomgqabazo. Umgqabazo is a stage that is after imvuma kufa, is a stage a level before ugoduswe.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. So just one minute, a message to the people who've been listening for 2 hours. We've really taken a long time, but I hope that they've learned something. It's not every day that you hear somebody who's accepted a calling, who's gone through the journey, who is prepared to share some information. So we apologize for that. But any message to the viewers, about anything, any wisdom, pearls of wisdom you have?
I would say that there's a lot of spiritual awakening that is happening ebantwini, which is basically what is intwaso. But intwaso, it does not necessarily mean intoba you are going to be igqirha, ne? So the spiritual awakening, when it happens to people, because a lot of people are experiencing it, just firstly listen to intuition yakho kuba ithini, and try to research as much as you can. But also, I always say to abantu abathi, okay, if andiyenzanga le nto, if I'm being called ke where ke ngoku you are called to be igqirha, I always say into yoba you must ask yourself these questions, into yoba what is the price that you are paying right now for not accepting the calling? Is it a price that you feel into yoba you are willing uphila nayo or not? And the answer yakho you will get from loo nto leyo. But I'm grateful now, a doc, for such opportunities, because at least it sheds a light to abantu who see into yobugqirha as something that's demonic or a witchcraft. So makwande nakuwe Bell.
No, let me clarify just that part you've just said now.
Okay.
No one is called to be a healer to kill.
Yes.
Right? So if you're called to be a healer by your underground crew, it's because they're going to give you healing properties. However, some people can abuse the gift that they have been given to cause harm. And when that happens, they are no longer healers. They are witches.
Yes.
All right? Because they are practicing witchcraft.
Witchcraft. Yes.
Which is not equal to healing. Meaning, and their underground crew will then leave them once they adopt those kind of things. But anyway, who am I to talk to you about these things? Or curious. So, but anyway, Mamtlan, kawuvalelisa abantu bakho ke ngola hlobo ubaqale ngayo. Bahleli kakuhle, they didn't interfere with our technology.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Caba bafuna ubonakala Mantlani.
Yes, bathanda izinto bafana nawe.
Ndiyabulela mani, ndiyacamagusha ndiyacamagusha kwizihlelo zasekhaya, ndiyacamagusha kuMantlani Ontlanga Onqaba Nodiko Omsuthu Ompilo Omkhondwana, ndiyacamagusha kuMazangwe Uzongozo Ochayo Onjana Nomsenga Nonyilatha, ndiyacamagusha kuMatshawe Okhawuta Umdangekatshiwo Ophalo Nkosi Yam, ndicamagushe emagqwashweni Olawo Umnqayili Ingqindo Omvaba Iketile Otika Ifumane Nepokotho, ndicamagushe kuManyele nguNonzinini ke lo intombi kaBhali ukhokokazi wam, ndithi camagu Sihlele, camagu Manyele Mbokothwane Edoyi Mnune, camagushe ukhokhokazi wam uNote, ndithi camagu Masithathu Ndebe Hase Khopho Ichisane, ndicamagushe kuzo zonke izihlelo ezindibanga egazini lam nendingazikhankanyanga amagama, nazo ndizibizile, zilapha phakathi kwethu, andizidelelanga, nazo ndiyazinqula ngobunqula kuthandaza. Camagu.
Tamaku. Thank you very much to all our viewers. I hope you picked up one or two things. It is important. This is Heritage Month, and part of us, talking heritage is to also reclaim, our African spirituality as part of who we are. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you, Selina. All the best on your journey going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right.